Hi, and welcome to Speak Up with Laurel Libby. Thanks for joining us today on the podcast. Please do go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. Today, I'm really excited to be talking to Parker Brownrigg. I met Parker flying home from DC recently, and we struck up a conversation and spent the whole flight talking about life as a young adult, living in Maine, having been born and raised here, and now working 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off, flying home. So we're going to be diving into all of that today. But it's my delight to welcome Parker. If this is what the next generation of Mainers looks like, we are going to be in great shape. So thanks so much for joining us today, Parker.
Glad to be here.
We boarded the plane, and sometimes I'm flying back from DC or wherever, and you don't have a conversation at all. But why don't you tell the story? What sparked their conversation?
Yeah, so I follow you on social media, and me and my mom kind of follow politics pretty heavily, and I've been up for almost 36 hours at that point.
Oh my goodness!
And sat down in my window seat, just ready to take a nap, and then you sat down in the aisle seat. And I'm thinking to myself, I think that's Laurel Libby. So I text my mom, I'm like, hey, I think Laurel Libby is sitting in the seat next to me. And she's like, oh my God, you need to say hi. I'm like, oh, I don't want to bother her. Maybe once we take off, I'll say hi. And then I asked you, once you're off your call and stuff like that, hey, are you Laurel Libby? And you said, yeah, I am. And I'm like, it's really nice to meet you. I appreciate everything you've done for the state. Have a safe flight. And then I thought that was it. And
then I got chatty.
Yeah, which I don't mind. I fly a bunch of times throughout the year with my line of work. So
Sure.
A conversation on a plane rarely happens. Usually I'm watching a movie or most likely taking a nap.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, our introduction really intrigued me because you're here at 26, right?
Yeah.
Born and raised Mainer. And you told me you were flying back from 3 weeks at your job. You're a merchant mariner. You graduated from Maine Maritime Academy. And at 26, you have this amazing career. And you work 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. Tell us about that. Tell us about what you do and why you're here now home for 3 weeks.
Yeah, so I work for a offshore supply boat company. My boat's pretty weird because it can go from a offshore supply boat to a tanker. It's pretty much the only one in the world that can do that. So it's pretty cool. We mainly out in the Gulf of Mexico, assisting the drill rigs and drill platforms that are out there, drilling for oil in the Gulf of Mexico. And yeah, just 3 weeks of maintaining engines and all the various pieces of equipment on board.
Because you're an engineer.
Yeah.
So that's the degree you graduated from Maine Maritime.
So my degree from Maine Maritime was marine engineering technology. So it's a little more math based, just in case I do want to go and get a shoreside job working at BIW or something like that, or a power plant. But yeah.
So it's pretty versatile, it sounds like.
Yeah, MMA gave me a pretty great education to go do whatever I want in my field. So.
Well, let's give a little plug for MMA.
Yeah.
One of my kiddos has kind of talked about, marine biology or something like that. It is, there's such a diverse workforce that comes out of MMA.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us what some of your classmates are doing?
Yeah. So I was in the regiment program. So you get a Coast Guard license after that. I know quite a few people who did the marine biology, some people who did marine science, quite a few people who did international business and logistics, which is like, the back end of the shipping industry. Then I think Maine Maritime just came out with a nuclear major. I know they just did a minor, but I don't know if they made it to a major yet, which is really big for Maine. If they offered that when I was there, I definitely would have taken advantage of that.
Okay, no, tell us why. For everybody who hears you say nuclear and goes, "Oh my gosh, not nuclear."
Yeah, so I think that nuclear is definitely the way of the future. It's, all you're doing is just, in simple terms, harvesting the heat from the natural decay of uranium and using that heat to heat up water, spin a turbine, creating electricity. So I think that's the way of the future. Hopefully Maine Yankee or something like it opens up in Maine again. The closest one is in Seabrook, New Hampshire, and that one's going strong.
If we do that, we're gonna be rabbit trails all over the place, I think, Parker, because you're just such a wealth of information on so many topics. But if Maine did go in the direction of nuclear, small modular nuclear, whatever the case may be, what does that do for the cost of energy in Maine?
Probably decrease it quite a bit, because we got the wind farms up in Rumford, then a little bit of hydro, whole lot of solar. I mean, if you're traveling south, you look in gray, you see that's one solar farm. There's plenty of them in Maine. Yeah, I mean, nuclear, yeah, it's dangerous, but with all the safety precautions that they have nowadays, it's
not the nuclear folks are thinking of the past.
No, it's not Chernobyl. It's not a big nuclear weapon. It's just making clean energy.
So let's back up. We're going to get back to your education, but let's back up and talk about, we're both born and raised Mainers.
Yeah.
So you are a couple decades behind me. What did that look like for you? What keeps you in Maine?
Yeah, so I grew up in Lewiston, actually graduated Lewiston High School in 2018. Maine is just such a beautiful state. I'd kind of like to keep it that way, where, you're friends with your neighbors and all that. You're not constantly looking over your shoulder. It's a nice place to live.
Yeah.
And a place where people want to come and visit because it is such a beautiful state. So,
yeah. I often say that Mainers want to just live their lives and be left alone. Would you say that kind of summarizes?
Yeah, pretty much.
Summarizes us as a people.
Yeah, we want to keep our state great, and we don't want out of towners or flatlanders to come and ruin it.
Yeah, come and change it from,
exactly.
from what it is. Yeah. Well, let's fast forward then to your education. You graduated in 2018, and you went to MMA. One of the things we talked about on the plane was your experience with higher education and, the very deliberate choice you made to get that education and what you wanted to do with it. And you talked a little bit about some pretty massive student debt.
Yeah. So, I like to think of higher education, like, getting a bachelor's or something like that, as it's an investment. It's an investment on your education. I knew going into it, I was going to walk out with $100,000 plus worth of debt, but my first job also paid me $100,000, and then it's just grown from there. Yeah. So I'm lucky enough, with the help of my wife, who is very frugal, to be completely debt free at 26 years old.
That's incredible.
So
you graduated. You were 22 when you graduated. 4 years later, you guys paid off all of your student debt from MMA. You have this amazing career, which can go in any direction. Right now, you're doing this 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. Pretty cool job down in Louisiana. What is your advice to folks looking at college? And it seems to me you were really, really deliberate. If somebody wants to get a degree in basket weaving, would you recommend that they take out $100,000 in student loans?
I mean, I would not, because at the end you're paying for the education you got.
Well, I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
Ideally, right? That's the personal responsibility piece.
Yeah.
You guys made that choice and then took care of it, paid that off. Do you think, we've got politicians in Augusta who are saying, we need to be providing free college for Maine students. Is it government responsibility to provide that? Should taxpayers be paying off student loans for people? Where does that personal responsibility come in?
At the end of the day, you made a choice. Yeah, maybe college has risen in price, but at the end of the day, you signed the papers. It's like if you take out a loan for a house, you're not going to ask the taxpayers to pay for your house, But
Well, some people might. We do, again, have that conversation going on in Augusta where folks are saying, well, education is a right, housing is a right, healthcare is a right. All of these things are rights. And by saying that they're a right, that means that, you can say, well, somebody other than myself has to pay for it.
yeah,
And I feel like that is, I think about that and the burden that then actually puts on you. You have done the responsible thing. You guys paid off those student loans, and then, Augusta politicians saying, well, actually, Parker, you should also pay the student loans for others who didn't make the same choice.
yeah,
But want to have that college education and not have to be responsible for it.
yeah. And college it's not the only way forward anymore. Like a lot of jobs do require it, but a lot of blue collar jobs, you really don't. Like in my job, for example, I went to MMA. I took the fast track to get my license and all that. You could sign on with one of these companies starting off at the lower level. Yeah, you're not going to make as much, but you're getting your foot in the door, getting all that experience. So,
yeah, we talked a little bit about AI and how these, jobs will disappear, and jobs like yours, those are not going to be automated anytime soon.
No.
And so putting some thought into, what career track do I want to go down, and how these practical hands-on jobs, those are going to be around. If somebody, it becomes an electrician or a contractor or your line of work, that job is secure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I work on engines all day. It's kind of hard to tell a machine, hey, this is leaking. I need you to drain this system and replace this part, fill it back up, test run it, all that. Or this is making a funny sound. Let's investigate, I don't think a machine's going to be able to have that intuition.
Not this decade.
No, not this decade at least.
Not this decade. So going back to your job, you've got this 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. We met as you were coming home. How is that? That is, I got a question when I posted a picture of us on the plane and talked about our conversation. Somebody was saying, I thought this was 3 months on, 3 months off. What is that lifestyle like for you?
Yeah, so I'm very lucky with my job being 21 days on, 21 days off. And that's pretty standard for the oil field. Once you get into like real tankers, container ships, ro-ros, that's when you get into
What's a ro-ro?
Roll on, roll off.
Okay.
So it's a big giant door that transports that lowers and raises to transport cars and stuff like that to different countries. So that's when you get into the 60, 75, 90, 120 day hitches.
Wow.
So,
wow.
I mean, as much as I would love to do that, I value being home less, but more often.
Yeah.
So,
I'm curious, you do have all of this travel, every 3 weeks you're traveling either to work or back from work.
Yep.
And you grew up here in Lewiston. What keeps you here for the long term? Like, why have you guys made the decision to be here versus relocating for your job?
Yeah. So, I mean, traveling doesn't really bother me much, but my family's here, my wife's family's here, and we just love the state. We're big out. We like outdoor activities. We both go four-wheeling, which is we have a lot of trails where we live down south. And yeah, I don't think we'd be able to get that style of living anywhere else other than Maine, where the outdoor aspect of the state is so big.
Yeah, I mean, I'm biased, I will admit it. But like, what don't we have? We have lakes, mountains, the ocean. We have a desert. I mean, what state can claim to have everything and a desert? Some folks might think our mountains are not maybe as mountainous, but I think we've got just about everything. Plus, the forest, and I think that folks do want to stay in Maine for the lifestyle, that outdoor lifestyle that you're talking about. So tell me, you guys do live in southern Maine,
Yep.
and you're starting that, looking for a home, putting down more roots in this state that we love. How has that house hunt been going?
Not very good. There was one house that we liked the location. I think it listed for like mid 300s. Had no floors, needed so many things.
It had, hang on, mid $300,000 house that had no floors.
It had subfloors, but not finished floors.
So it has subfloors, no finished floors. Well, what does this house claim? $350,000. This is like a 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom.
I think
home,
it was
or
a 3-in-1, 3-bed, 1-bath.
3-in-1.
Came with 3 acres.
For mid 300s with no floors.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us more about this gem.
It sold for $100,000 over asking. I went the first day of the open house, and I asked the realtor, I'm like, hey, what are the odds this is going to go over asking?
Yeah, you're seeing no floors. So you walk in and see no floors, like maybe we can get a deal.
Yeah. She said, I've had 29 showings and have had 5 offers already, and it's already
goodness.
over asking.
Wow. So you guys didn't get the house?
No, we did not.
But you continue on that. So just to be clear, you have a full-time great job with a good income. Your wife also works full-time. You guys, if any 26-year-olds are in a good place, to no other debt, like you paid off your student loans, are in a good place to purchase a home, like that's you.
Yeah.
So what's the whole, like, tell us the backstory.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying like, we're doing so bad, and there's definitely people my age that are doing way worse than us. And, it is hard, even with the money that we make. But, saving for a down payment and then the bidding wars, we're just not interested in, paying $100,000+ over asking for a house that's not even worth the asking price,
Yeah.
So that's kind of the trouble we're falling into at the moment. Hopefully the market comes down within the next year or so, but I kind of don't see that happening.
So you guys are just renting for now and kind of biding your time.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about maybe building.
Yeah. I mean, even land prices, if you find a good plot of land, that'll run you, because banks don't really finance land. You have to put 50% down,
Sure.
ideally, and then you're paying that for land. Then you got to build, which is another $200,000-300,000 right there, unless you buy a $20,000 trailer off Facebook Marketplace, and then
Which sounds like we're going that direction.
Yeah. Then put in a well and septic, and there you go.
I mean, I make assumptions, that you're a pretty handy guy. So is that what that looks like moving forward? That like you guys are over time building a home, buying land, building a home.
Yeah, eventually that'll happen. If we get our savings up and we have enough money, maybe eventually we'll just buy a plot of land and do the trailer route for a little bit, and then save up more money and build the house that we want. But I mean, if the deal comes up,
Yeah. So, I mean, we've talked about like what keeps you a lifelong Mainer, what keeps you in Maine, and it's the lifestyle, as it is for so many, the outdoor activities and all of that. We'll dive into, think about what would make you leave Maine, despite the fact that you have family here. I want to remind folks, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast, whether that's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. So, Parker, tell us, what would make you leave Maine as a lifelong Mainer?
I mean, probably not a whole lot. I mean, the cost of living, if that gets, if that gets to the point where it'd be more beneficial for us to move and, leave both of our families, all of our friends, maybe we'd leave Maine. But, it's just such a great state that we don't really want to leave it.
Yeah. I think you're echoing what I hear from a lot of folks is we wouldn't want to leave Maine. That's how our family feels. And frankly, we so much don't want to leave Maine that that's why I am where I am serving as a state rep, because it got to a place where we said, well, the changes going on in our state that we don't want to see, either we work to fix it or at some point we would have to want to leave. Right. And so that's what's got me sitting in this chair, serving my third term, launching Lead Maine. But we see the brain drain, folks who aren't maybe as committed, don't have family ties, don't have compelling reasons keeping them here. We see our young people leaving the state. Maine is statistically the oldest state in the union. And that means less young folks starting businesses. We're lacking entrepreneurs. We're lacking the workforce that we need. And this is, from where I sit, because of the policies put in place in Augusta that discourage business growth, that discourage our young people from sticking around, the lack of opportunity. Do you feel like that is, do you feel like you're hearing that from your generation?
Yeah, just in my family in general, just, the cost of living is just so high, and it's hard, for people my age who are not making, a lot of money, but, they're also working their butts off, trying to make a living and, trying to afford a house and all that, and just buy groceries and be able to live. Cause we only live this life once, and being 26, you're not going to have that much energy again or all that free time. So,
yeah. So your classmates at MMA, let's talk about them for a minute. These are folks who went to college here in Maine, just like you. Have they stuck around? When you touch base with classmates, with the folks that you went to school with, what are they up to? Are they in Maine? Are they around the country?
Yeah. So some of my friends are from out of state, so they still either live with their parents or or just bought a house, that's a little run down. One of my buddies, single income, lives by himself, bought a house way up in northern Maine where they're a little bit more affordable.
Sure.
Then I worked with a couple people who also went to Maine same year. They're doing the same thing, bought a house in way northern Maine, or still living with their parents, just, being a 25-year-old.
Yeah, yeah. So you're saying anecdotally in your class, maybe we're not seeing the same brain drain that we're seeing in other industries where folks are going, there's no opportunities.
Yeah,
I'm out of here.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity in my career to move up. There's really just a shortage of people who want to do my line of work, and that goes for blue collar jobs anywhere. You look on LinkedIn and there's plenty of openings for what I do. Sure. And there's just not enough people to fill those slots, because a lot of the older generation, in their mid 40s, late 50s, who are, getting ready to retire, they don't want to do this. They just want to relax. And there's not enough people to fill those slots.
Obviously, you went that track of going to MMA and in the line of work that you do now. Do you feel like there was a push one way or another as you were getting towards the end of your high school career to go into kind of the more trade line of work, or, you must go to college for the usual kind of college and then some sort of white collar job track? Where do you think that is going these days? Is there a shift to encourage folks to go into the trades, which we so desperately need?
So when I was there, it was the big push to go to college. My story is kind of weird because I knew I wanted to be an engineer. I just didn't know what kind. Okay. And then my freshman year, we took a trip up to Maine Maritime, and I told myself, this is where I want to go. So I kind of knew since my freshman year of high school that I wanted to do this. Then I took, Lewiston has the Vocational Center, the LRTC, and I did welding for my junior and senior year. So we were with the automotive class and the carpentry class, electricity, plumbing, all those blue collar jobs.
You got to sample all of that.
So I was mainly welding, but LRTC offers all those programs and more.
So you were able to see kind of bird's eye view into all of these different professions during your high school career. and other students there able to do the same in high school, which do you feel like that experience drove your classmates in that direction more than, a high school that doesn't have that opportunity?
Yeah. So I was in the welding class. Couple of my friends went to go work at BIW, and then in the automotive class, pretty much all of them went to go work at shops. Some of them even opened up their own.
Wow.
One of my friends was in the electricity class, works as an electrician now. Because the thing with LRTC is you get a certification when after your senior year you test out. So when I graduated, I got my unlimited welding certificate, which meant I could go work as a welder somewhere.
Wow.
Right
out of high school.
Yeah, right out of high school.
That's amazing.
And then for the automotive program, I believe you graduate with your state inspection certificate.
Okay.
So that's the beauty of the LRTC. At the end of it, it's not for nothing. Not just say, oh, I did this. You actually get something at the end of it.
That's incredible. So back in the dark ages when I was in high school, I graduated from homeschooling, and I ended up taking a CNA class my senior year. And so when I graduated from high school, I had taken a couple college classes as well and had my CNA license. And so I went right to Maine Med and started working there as a CNA as I went through nursing school. Very similar. Like, you get to try it out and see if it is a fit. Obviously for me it was. I went on to nursing school, but that's, how do you think that changed the trajectory for you at all? Do you think it changed it for any of your classmates or refined it?
I'm not sure. I mean, in my case, getting the welding certificate was definitely, it was a backup option.
Sure.
It's always good to have, a backup. When I applied to MMA, if I didn't get in, I was just going to go work at BIW, still make some good money. But I think the push was still, go to college. You're not going to get a good job without a degree. And I've seen that firsthand just with my family. That's not really the case. You can go work in these blue collar trades and still make a very good living without a piece of paper.
Okay. I have told my kids a couple of times and they don't really love it, but I said, you guys can do anything you want in the whole world. I believe in you. And also, of the 5 of you, can one of you please be a contractor, one of you please be a plumber, and one of you please be an electrician? And aside from that, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of kidding, but kind of not. These are very practical trades that you make good money. It is steady income, and you can literally make your own work.
Yeah.
You can pick and choose, what you want to do. It's very much wide open for those fields right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's same with my line of work. This older generation has been doing it their entire lives. Mm-hmm. They're getting ready to retire. Mm-hmm. And there's not enough people to fill in those spaces. I mean, I saw it in my lifetime with the getting a computer science degree, because, 26 years old, I was part of the generation where we didn't grow up with it, but it was introduced to us, like computers and all that. Mm-hmm. And when that started to come out, there was a need for this degree. No one really had it. So the push was to go get it. And now there's so many of them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we're coming full circle back to that.
Yeah. Do you think that there's any risk in the next, 20 years that we're going to have, plumbers or electricians coming out our ears and there will, be a glut on the market?
I don't think so, because, there's pipes always burst, especially in Maine. Houses all need to be built. You always need a carpenter. You're always doing something electrical. I don't think there'll ever be a time where you don't need one of those blue collar trades, like a carpenter, electrician, plumber.
We're probably a long way off from having too many.
Yeah, long way off.
It's good to see young folks like you being encouraged to go into those fields, though. What do you think? We talked a little bit about, where you're at in life and trying to buy a house, trying to do these things, put down roots. What have you seen in that journey that we need to change about our state to make things easier for that generation and encourage folks to stay in Maine and put down those roots, especially folks who may not be as committed to Maine as you are.
Well, I mean, I'm sure as you know, and a lot of Mainers know, we have a lot of snowbirds.
Mm-hmm.
So, if anyone's not familiar with it, it's people who have a house in Maine. They come here from May to October and then go to Florida as soon as snow hits or it gets too cold.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people have these second homes that aren't being used, which is taking away from the houses that, my generation can buy. So I don't even know how you'd fix that, but I just know that's one of the problems.
Are you going to find a snowbirder and like convince them to move full time to Florida so you can buy their house?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, do you think, I sit there in my seat in Augusta and I hear, well, we need more housing. So that means the government needs to build more housing, or the government needs to fund more housing, or, or whatnot. From my perspective, I think we need to free up the market so that folks like you who are wanting to build, wanting to buy, can do it easier so that there are less barriers in the way. Have you run into any barriers besides the fact that, housing costs are through the roof? As you look forward to maybe building your own home, is there anything that sticks out to you that you go, gosh, like, I'm not looking forward to dealing with that?
Probably the interest rates. I know they've come down a little bit, but I mean, what are they? 6%, 5%? I mean, my parents locked in at 2%, which is, pretty significant when you're talking about, a $500,000 house that a lot of these houses are going for right now. 2%.
Did you ever think you'd be saying $500,000 house?
When I was a kid thinking $500,000 house, I was thinking like a mansion. Now it's just like, it's just a little townhouse.
Oh, it's just like a 2-bedroom with a, it's remarkable.
Yeah. But I mean, home prices, so you buy a $500,000 house at a 2% interest rate. That's a pretty, you can make that payment. That's not a bad payment. At 6%, now you're looking at, $4.5, $5,000 a month for the same house, just a different interest rate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, interest rate, there are so many things that go into being able to make that payment.
Yeah.
And one doozy in there is your property taxes.
Yeah.
This statistic might surprise you, but when you look at property tax versus income, like having that as a comparison, Maine has higher property taxes than New Hampshire. In fact, the highest property taxes in the country. And it's just one more of those things that encourages folks. That's a barrier to buying a home when you know that your property taxes are going to be, so much, and you're paying that every month, or you're saving up and paying it every 6 months, whatever the case may be. These property taxes are keeping young folks out of their homes, and they're also pushing our seniors out of their homes. And so, I think that increased level of taxation is certainly a barrier that I would like to see significantly decreased, so that we do have folks able to afford to build, buy, maintain their house.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, Maine statistically has higher property taxes than New Hampshire, because New Hampshire has no sales tax. And Maine's 5.5.
Yeah. Oh, and also New Hampshire has no income tax.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're comparing things here and looking at this state, which has no income tax, no sales tax, and our property taxes are higher, and we have an income tax and a sales tax. You have to be struck by, we're doing something wrong.
Yeah. And I don't think the solution to that is, we'll just raise your taxes, help pay for all this stuff. No, we gotta look at what we're spending our money on.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing.
Okay, I'm going to try to shock you with a statistic that I don't think we talked about on the plane. You could just give me your reaction. Maine, back in 2018, had a budget of $7 billion. Okay, so like our entire history as a state, our budget had never been higher than $7 billion. Do you know what it is like this year it's going to max out at?
probably say 20.
Okay, you're more of a pessimist than I am, I guess. It's not, thankfully, going to be 20. That would be a drastic increase. Now I feel like my number is going to be such a, like, no big deal. Our budget has increased by 65% in the last 7 years to, it's going to be at $12 billion.
I mean,
So from 7 to 12, give me your reaction.
I mean, for a state that is as, relatively small in population as Maine, it's a lot of money. I mean, 12 billion, it's a lot of money.
So from the time that you graduated high school in 2018 to now, a 65% increase in budget. Has your parents' budget, has their income increased by 65% in the last 7, 8 years? No.
It is not.
No one's has. And yet that is how the state budget has increased. And so you talk about that level of taxation, that is reflected in the spending. Government spending, government doesn't have any money. So government spending is the taxation, the money that it has taken from Mainers and then is spending. So when you look at how high our property taxes are, when you look at how high our income tax is, the folks who are making under $100,000 a year, they're taxed at the highest rate in all of New England.
Yeah.
Here in Maine.
Yeah, and for, residents of Maine, there's really not a lot of people making over six figures.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of them are in the 40 to 75 range, and that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a huge burden. I feel like that is one of the biggest burdens on Mainers that makes them say, okay, like, peace out. I got an email from a gentleman who said that he and his wife are leaving Maine. They are moving to a state with a lower cost of living, lower tax rate, and they're going to be making less money. But because of the lower cost of living, they estimate that they're going to actually be able to put into savings between $500 and $1,000 a month that they can't possibly afford to do right now. And so the numbers just make sense to them. As much as they love our state and want to be here, they just can't afford to be. And I think that's one of the things that just is pushing people out of the state. And I think the answer has to be less government spending, less taxation of Maine people.
Yeah, most definitely. Definitely the less taxation. Because, I mean, with the cost of living, you just go right over the border to New Hampshire. You're taking out 2 sets of taxes, income tax and sales tax. Now you got all that extra money from your paycheck that's going right in your pocket to be able to save, $500 to $1,000, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot of money.
And you live close to that border. So it's like right there. Why not go and spend the money in New Hampshire and not have to pay extra when you've already been, your income's already been taxed so much already. Why not just skip over to New Hampshire to buy what you need?
Exactly.
I think that's what a lot of Southern Mainers are probably saying these days.
Yeah.
So Parker, tell me, you guys are planting your feet here in Maine. What would you like to see in the next decade? What does Maine look like to you, ideally, as you guys settle in and maybe have a family, continue the next generation in Maine? What do you want to see for the next generation?
Ideally, no income tax. That'd be a start. No, just the state of Maine catering more to what it's supposed to be, an outdoorsman state. Putting more money into, the ATV trails and the snowmobile trails and hunting and fishing and stuff like that.
Okay, I'm going to argue with you a little bit on that. So I don't want the government to put money into the ATV trails, but here's the trade-off, right? If we get rid of our income tax and our Mainers are keeping more money in their pocket, doesn't that create this free market where folks will be wanting to spend on what they want to spend? And you see folks investing in these different pieces instead of saying, well, the government needs to do X, Y, and Z. Well, hey, maybe Mainers can do X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for ATV trails specifically, because that's my cup of tea.
Yeah.
So the trails are run by clubs, and the
Okay.
clubs get funding from the state to maintain those trails.
Yep.
So, and then they, fees from memberships and club drives and stuff like that. So that's one part where the state is doing good, I guess, and helping to cater to that. I'd like to see a little bit more of it. Pull some money from here, put it towards here to, help show the out-of-staters and people like us what the state is supposed to be.
What else? What else for the next generation?
I don't know. It's a loaded question. I'd love to see Maine be, like I said, just the state it's supposed to be, not the state it wants to be, like California or New York. Somewhere where I'm proud to say, I live in Maine. My family's from Maine. My kids are growing up in Maine, and that means something.
Well, thanks so much, Parker, for joining us on Speak Up with Laurel Libby. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you back here for another episode as we speak up about what matters here in Maine.